Here is my sampler pattern. I really had a fun time with this one because I use a lot of different stitches in these letters. So if you feel like trying some new stitches, this might be a fun one to do that. If not, on the next version, I just use one stitch to do them all. So you can see how that looks. With this one, I did just a little bit of coloring. I colored in the house and then these stars. So the moon is just a stem stitch, and then I just filled it in. So I did the outside and then just kept going in and in and in until it's done. And the smoke, that's little running stitches. These berries, the big ones are satin stitched, and then the little ones are just French knots. These stairs are blanket stitch, which I'll show you. And these chimneys, I just filled in with a little satin stitch. So on this version, I'm just using one color of thread, Valdani, and I didn't color in anything, and I didn't fill in the moon. I just did the outline of the moon. And I usually don't use a hoop, but I think it might be easier to show you some of these if it is in a hoop. So these stars are just straight stitches. So you start at one point and go to the next point. Now, if I brought my needle up where I just put it down, it's just gonna come out. So I'm gonna jump up here and go back to that one. So it's kind of like doing a back stitch. And I jump ahead and go back. So very easy stars, very easy stitch. And you can see on this one, all the letters are stitched just using a very simple stem stitch. And I'll take the hoop off in a second and show you what that looks like. So you can decide if you want to try different stitches or just keep it very, very simple with the stem stitch. So these stairs are blanket stitched, and I did the teeth going down. So as you can see on this one, the line is at the top with the teeth heading down. And I traced all of these little lines, but you don't need to. You can just go for it. So the way I like to start is at the corner, and then I do the first tooth down and come back up in that same corner. So now I have my first tooth. I'm going to carry my thread on this side, go down at a tooth. I somehow didn't draw a tooth there, I guess. And then, so needle goes down at the base, up at the top, the thread goes under the needle, and that's the second tooth. I call them teeth. I don't know what they're really called. And then when I get done with this, I just do a stem stitch across the bottom. So you can see here, there's just a little stem stitch that goes across the bottom. And then the stairs are done. Okay, so let's go over some of the stitches that are on here. This is a chain stitch, very small chain stitch. So for the purposes of showing you, I'm going to do it in a hoop. So for a chain stitch, you're going to, you can trace each little loop that's in the pattern or just draw a straight line. So you're going to start at a point and then put your needle down in the same point. These are really small ones, so just like 1/8 of an inch. The thread goes under the needle, and then the needle goes inside of that loop. So inside of the loop, go up a little bit, thread goes under the needle, and that is how you do a chain stitch. Oops. And then when you get to the end, you just tack it right on the other side of the loop, and that holds it in place. Okay, another stitch we have here is the French knot. So these are just a bunch of French knots. I used 3 wraps around. So 1, 2, 3, and I kind of hold them with my finger. Put the needle down very close to where you brought it up. Pull those wraps down. You want them to be snug, but not too tight, because you're going to have to pull your needle through. Hold it in place with your thumb and your finger on the back, and then pull the needle through. And then just come up about the same width as that away from it. 1, 2, 3. Pull those wraps down. Hold it in place. And then you just continue on. It's easier if there's a line there to follow. Don't really have a line to give me a guide. But it's okay if they kind of go a little wonky off the line, because they don't have to be perfectly straight. Like on this, you can see it kind of has a little bit of a bend to it. I like that because if you look at the old samplers that like young girls did, they aren't perfect, and I think that's what makes them so appealing to me anyway. Okay, so the next one is this little one right here. I don't know if you can see, but it's actually 2 colors. So the first stitch in that is a back stitch. So we're going to go, oh, sorry, I turned it the wrong way. You're going to start kind of like you would a running stitch. So about 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. But then you're going to go back in that same hole as the first stitch ended. Go past where the thread comes out 1/8 of an inch. And that is called a back stitch. So we just continue that. So that's the base of those letters. That one didn't turn out very good. I have a little gap there, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so that is the back stitch. Now, I'm going to take another color of thread just so that you can see a little bit easier. Maybe I'll do a red. Okay, so now we're going to whip that. So I'm going to bring my needle up about halfway up that first stitch. Now I'm going to go under the next stitch. So I'm not picking up any fabric. And then I go under the next stitch. Always working from the same direction. So your little crossed lines are going to be going the same direction. You can go up and down, and then it kind of leaves a little weavy look. But for this one, I'm just doing them all in the same direction. And if you have trouble with your needle picking up fabric, you can always use the eye of the needle to go under the stitch. And then when you're done, you just put your needle down. And now you have kind of a fun, it's very subtle, but it's a nice way of adding something a little different than just a stem stitch or just a back stitch. So that's a whipped back stitch. Okay, so this is a feather stitch. And I use these on the letters that didn't have a lot of transitions, like going down and up. It's just very simple, no corners. So if you want to mix it up on where you use these stitches, that's what I would recommend when you're doing a feather stitch. So the feather stitch, you're going to start, it's like a fly stitch. I'm going to come down just a little bit and over, and then down in the center. So it's a kind of like a V, but this side is a little lower than the first side. The thread's going to go under the needle, and that's the first one. Now we're going to alternate, and we're going to put the needle down on this side, and instead of going directly across, we're going to go down a little bit. And then this V part, that's what's going to remain the same. I think I need to turn my fabric this way. So start here, pull the needle up so that the V is staying down the center. The thread goes under the needle, and then we go back to this side. So go over and down just a little bit and come up right below the other V's. Thread goes under the needle, and that is a feather stitch. This is a little bigger. I use tiny, tiny, tiny ones on the letters because the letters are so small. So this might be going to practice. And then to if it comes to a straight line, then you're just going to tack it on the other side. Okay, so let's see what other stitches we have. We have the, where is it? Here, cable chain. I think that looks so cool. The cable chain. I think I do this one right-handed. I know I'm left-handed, but I hold the needle in my right hand when I do this, so I don't know. Okay, so you're going to pull the needle up where you're going to start, and then you're going to wrap the thread around the needle towards you, not away from you, but towards you, like that. You're going to go out just a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch, and then up 1/8 of an inch. Now you're going to take the thread under that needle and pull it through. So we're just going to repeat that. Wrap the thread around the needle, take the needle down and up, put the thread under the needle. So there's a little cable. You kind of closed up on me a little bit. And then straight and a little cable. Let's see if I can do it so it doesn't close. And this one took some practice for me, and you can see mine aren't very even there. That one's bigger than that one, but so it does take a little bit of practice. There's a great video online on the Needle and Thread website. If you look up cable chain, it's a great source for seeing how these stitches are done. She does a really nice job explaining it. Okay, and then I think we have one more. So this stitch is a herringbone stitch. Really small herringbone stitch. Maybe you can see it better on the Z. This stitch I would recommend on letters that are straight lines, not curved lines. So for a herringbone stitch, you're going to go down at an angle like you're going to do a cross stitch kind of. But instead of bringing a needle up right under that stitch like you would if it was a cross stitch, you're just picking up a little bit of thread. Now you're going up to this line and back. So it's kind of like an odd back stitch in a way, because you're moving the opposite of what you would think you would move. But every time you do that, you're going to cross the previous stitch. And again, I would recommend Needle and Thread. Mary Corbett is her name, and she does an excellent job showing you the different stitches. But that's kind of a sweet little stitch. And I think that's all the stitches there are in this one. We have the fern stitch here, which I've gone over on some other videos, so hopefully you can find that information. And when I'm done, now that I'm done, I'm going to press this from the back side, and that way the depth of these will just be absorbed into the ironing surface so that it will still have some texture to it. And I trace these with the Pilot friction pen, which disappears with the heat of an iron. So the little lines that are left, I'm not going to be able to see. They'll just be ironed out. So this is what it looks like if you just use a stem stitch on the letters. And then this is the alternate way, where a lot of different stitches are going on there. I think the only other one I didn't talk about was like this one that's a little thicker. It looks a lot like this, which is a chain stitch, but this is actually a stem stitch and then another stem stitch touching it really close. So these are 2 rows of stem stitches there, and this is 1 row of a stem stitch. So you can see the difference in the thickness. This is also 2 rows of stem stitches. And if there's another stitch that you want to try, have at it. I think that'd be kind of fun to explore some other stitches on this too. So there you go. Which way are you going to do it? Oh, I also wanted to mention, if you color these in with the colored pencils, you have to fix it before you start stitching. And I use the jacquard textile medium, and that will set the color so that they don't rub off while you're stitching. And then when you're done, you press it from the back side so that the stitches aren't smashed. And the heat from the iron is going to set these colors. And that way you can wash this and these colors are not going to wash out. It's permanent. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this month, and I look forward to seeing what you stitch up.